I'm Robert McNamara. I'm a senior attorney with the Institute for Justice. IJ is a nationwide libertarian public interest law firm. We fight across the country in state and federal courts in 4 key areas. We protect free speech, private property rights, educational choice, and economic liberty. And what I'm doing here in Colorado this week is actually fighting for economic liberty on behalf of Mile High Cab, which wants to start offering taxi services in Denver and the surrounding areas. Now, prior to 2008, to start a new taxi company in Denver, you first had to prove that your taxi company was necessary, that the city needed more cabs, and you had to prove this in what amounted to full-blown litigation against the established taxi companies. And the difficulty was, that's kind of a question without an answer. Usually how we decide if the city needs more of something is we let entrepreneurs open the business and we see if consumers come. The way you figure out if the city needs more cheeseburgers is you let someone open a restaurant, and if it didn't need more cheeseburgers, no one comes, and the restaurant closes. And so, from 1994 to 2008, Denver got no new taxi companies because this standard was impossible. In 2008, though, the Colorado legislature changed the law. And they shifted it so that instead of entrepreneurs having to prove their business was necessary, the established taxi companies would have to prove that the new company would somehow harm the public if it were allowed to compete. And this was a great reform. It was a very useful reform. It was a pro-freedom reform. But the agency responsible for enforcing the law, the State Public Utilities Commission, has basically entirely failed to enforce it. They let the first new applicant into the market, and since then they've basically reverted back to the old rule. They're keeping everyone out of the Denver market without even making the established companies prove public harm. And that's what we're doing in the Colorado Supreme Court. We're fighting for the Supreme Court to order the Public Utilities Commission to follow the law, to follow the pro-freedom agenda that the legislature imposed in its 2008 taxi reforms. And this is important nationwide. Colorado's 2008 reforms were part of a national trend toward more taxi freedom, the gold star of which is the city of Minneapolis's reform, where they've totally removed their cap on new taxi businesses and seen the number of taxi licenses more than double in the wake of that reform. And what the Public Utilities Commission is doing in Colorado is trying to fight back against this tide of freedom. And a ruling in our favor by the Colorado Supreme Court would be a clear ruling that state agencies will not be allowed to fight this national trend toward greater taxi freedom. That's going to mean more freedom for Mile High Cab, that's going to mean more freedom for other taxi entrepreneurs in the state of Colorado, and that's going to mean more freedom for taxi entrepreneurs nationwide. One of our core missions is protecting economic liberty, and that's your right to earn an honest living without unnecessary interference from the government. And since our founding, a big part of our focus on economic liberty has been the taxi industry. Taxis are the classic American entrepreneurship opportunity. They don't take a lot of formal education, they don't take a lot of startup capital. Really all you need are some cars and a great business plan and a great work ethic. And it's a great way for lower income people and immigrants to start pulling themselves up the entrepreneurial ladder. Unfortunately, in most jurisdictions in this country, the only thing standing in your way is the government. In city after city and state after state, government regulations make it all but impossible to start a new taxi business. And they do this explicitly in many cases to protect the profit margins of established companies. But it's illegitimate to use government power just to enrich politically favored groups at the expense of entrepreneurs and consumers, and that's why taxi freedom has always been at the heart of our economic liberty fight. You can learn more about IJ and our work by going to our website at www.ij.org.